All right, so there has been a lot of pressure in Hollywood to kind of like go woke, go green, and be environmentally conscious with movies. Okay, it doesn't necessarily mean making more green characters, but it does mean recycling is back. Recycling in movies has been something that's been around for a long time. Having props from one movie show up into another, whether it's complicated as a flying car or as simple as a background newspaper that is not supposed to actually convey information, it's very easy and convenient to reuse props. Of course, sometimes those props actually become part of pop culture, and when you find them in older movies, it kind of becomes almost an Easter egg. Now, for Star Wars, the reuse of props, especially for the first movie in the beginning, was one of those things that really grounded the film in real life. And the props were, so kind of realistic, real-world-esque that even original ones that were created wound up getting used for other movies, like how Obi-Wan's chest wound up being used for Lex Luthor's kryptonite chest in Superman 2. All right, but back to Star Wars. Yeah, there's a lot that pops up that's like, wait a minute, have I seen that before? And that's a really big reason of why the original film felt so lived in. Because it wasn't just George Lucas, but other people like Rick Baker and Stan Winston, all of the special effects, they were using real physical world masks and props. And the tangibility, is that the right word I'm looking for? So, for example, that the devil mask there and the wolf man, those were originally meant for some B-level horror movies, especially one that Bob Burns did as part of his Bob's Basement Halloween horror series. He had one particular, The Thing in the Attic, and that's where the devil character mask came from. Other props that showed up in the Cantina, such as the background spaceman suits, like all of those spaceman suits, those weren't actually created for Star Wars. They were just picked up from previous low-budget B sci-fi movies from the 60s and 70s. So the Duros, for example, or at least the one Duros, that's actually in a white suit, considering they don't match each other. That was originally Cornelius's suit from Planet of the, or actually not Planet of the Apes, Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Was that the third one? Third one, I think, from the 1970s. So yeah, white astronaut suit, totally works. Got a yellow suit? Sure, we can reuse that too. So if you continue, all to scan through the film, you're going to see that you had reuse from the old Doctor Who BBC show from the 60s. The 10th Planet episode is where we get both Boshek on the left and Bosk's spacesuit on the right. Both suits would actually get reused again in First Men on the Moon. So the 1964 film looking ahead at the actual NASA moon landing in a couple years, or the fake one, as Rick Sanchez would say. So yeah, all of those cool spacesuits that later got used by Cantina aliens and bounty hunters throughout the original trilogy. One of the props that's kind of got a pop culture story into itself is the IG-88 head. A lot of fans have noticed it showed up as a drink dispenser in the Cantina. So you can kind of see 3 IG-88 heads right there. Now, the interesting thing is, while the head did get reused in the Cantina and on IG-88, its original source it's the inside of a Rolls-Royce airplane engine. So, again, using actual real-world things and repurposing them was a huge part of what gave Star Wars that lived-in quality. Taking an actual piece of an engine, not just creating something and having it be new, which is a lot of, I think, what happened with the prequels and the Disney movies, was relying on CGI and creating things. So, old Rolls-Royce engine, bam, now we got a drink dispenser. Oh, let's reuse that for the head of a bounty hunter. In fact, it actually shows up in a third spot. Can you guess? You probably don't know this one, but aside from IG-88's head in the Cantina, it's also sitting out there on Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen's charred bodies. Just, another metal piece that was laying around as a prop. And hey, why not? Maybe it adds to the backstory. Now, beyond the movies, the theme park rides, especially Star Tours, really borrowed from real-world parts to fill the queue, which is the area people are walking through. There were a lot of original robots created to make them look Star Warsian, like Captain Rex, who had to abandon his name after another Captain Rex from the Clone Wars was created. But combining these original creations with original classic trilogy droids made the ride feel very lived in. And a lot of these wacky, crazy droids from the line wound up becoming action figures in an exclusive Star Tours park toy program. Now, in particular, I would draw your attention to the WEDG droids, or the Sector G2 droids, which are doing a lot of maintenance. You can see these throughout the queue in both Anaheim, Florida, Toyota, Japan. Well, Toyota's from Japan. I meant Tokyo is what I was trying to say. Now, don't look too carefully at these robots, but they're actually geese. Well, they're the internal structure of geese. Originally used in America Sings and then reused in Splash Mountain, the geese had their feathers removed and a new head popped on to turn into the G2 droids from Star Toys. You can especially see this if you look at their feet and tail. He has webbed feet without the webbing, and there's a little section where the goose's tail used to be plugged on. So yeah, this is just a standard goose animatronic with the feathers and clothing, skin, I guess if you will, removed. That's what it looks like inside. Then slap on a backpack, a new binocular head, keep the feathered the tail and the webbed feet, and bam, you have a cool robot. All right, you think that's a crazy Star Tours robot pop-in? That's nothing compared to DLX2, which Disneyland times 2, get it? All right, so another one of those that you have to kind of search and find in the ride. And it's official, behind the scenes considers this a actual Star Wars character, but not where it came from. Originally, it's from an episode of Hill Street Blues, where ironically it was a TK droid, which is, the lettering system for stormtroopers. So yes, it was just literally lifted up and plopped right down in the Star Tours queue, and that means that one day it eventually got an action figure. So hey, if you ever wanted to recreate those Hill Street Blues action figure moments, the droid's been repacked several times, in fact. So yeah, weird that a robot that was not made for Star Wars at all has been sold multiple times as an actual official Star Wars action figure. And yeah, when you look at it, you can kind of tell it kind of stands out. It doesn't look very Star Warsian, I guess, if you will. And honestly, a big part of that was that mixing and matching of parts that worked so well. Taking things like microphones and using them as the voice box for a droid, or actual camera lenses and using them for Luke's microbinoculars. A repainted vacuum became the Death Star conference table phone, and of course, everyone knows that ice cream maker man Wilbur Hood is running around with a 1970s ice cream maker, which has now become a portable safe. Luke's lightsaber was also something that was picked up from the real world. While they needed a metal shaft to be the main hilt, well, finding that in the real world meant scrapping parts from a used camera shop in England. And yes, a Gaffrey camera, the little pole that held the flash, became the basis of Anakin's lightsaber. It was already a cylinder. It was a singular, but a cylinder tube. So simply had to have modifications done to the top, and bam, free lightsaber. So hey, go check out eBay and pick up a 1950s camera. You can have a lightsaber too. So when you're watching the film and you see whether reuse parts or things that are modified from the real world, to me, this isn't a cheap out that Star Wars did. It's really what made it feel so real, because everything was there. It was on set. There was a big difference between, old movies and the way they make them now. The fact that you had that permanence. You had the fact that everything could be touched and it had some kind of real world component. And in the end, to me, that's why Star Wars, the originals, have lasted so long, because they feel real. I hope that you found this video interesting and insightful as far as where so many of the costumes and props came from. Probably do a sequel to this video. Let me know if you'd like to see that, or other subjects. Always open for all topics. Thank you so much for watching, sharing. It's the best way to support this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.